you're sitting on the ground with me today because I thought I would put a little work into my little book stack here. This is usually where I keep books that are my TBR or that I'm currently reading, and I actually haven't gone through this in a little while. Also, the other things I have on here are a candle. I'm currently burning Marshmallow Fireside by Bath & Body Works. I have a wick cutter in rose gold, which is very dusty right now. I actually got this as a part of a PR package, and it worked out perfectly because I wanted to buy a wick cutter, but I just don't love that it's rose gold, but it's fine. And then I also have two random lighters that I like to hide because they're a bit ugly, and then Amber Sultan, the decant, because I've been wearing this a lot for just like reading because it's very, very cozy. I brought over the books from my bedside table, which are mainly the fiction books that I'm working through, as well as Women Who Run with the Wolves, which is something that I just like read a little bit of every once in a while. The Framed Women of Ardmore House. I am 126 pages in. I didn't dislike this book, but I just wasn't feeling it when I was reading it, and I kind of had to put it down. I don't know if I'm gonna DNF it yet and unhaul it, but maybe I'll just keep this on the side for now. I am currently reading Like Happiness by Ursula Villarreal Mora. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm really enjoying this. I read it for about a day and a half, and that's how far I've gotten, so I will be finishing this. I'm also working through Slouching Through Bethlehem by Joan Didion. I've heard so many good things about this book, and I am still working through the stories, non-fiction reads that I'm working through right now. I started The Practice, Shipping Creative Work today by Seth Godin. I actually was gonna unhaul this, but I thought I would flip through it this morning, and I actually found a lot of golden nuggets in here, so I'm gonna probably finish this and then unhaul it. I also have Permission Marketing here, both of which I scanned through today and realized that there are probably some things that I can take away from this. The great thing about getting aardvark boxes is they send like 4 bookmarks every box, so I always have a bookmark on hand. But You're the Brand by Mike Kim. I actually met Mike Kim in a mastermind that I was in at the end of last year, and this book is phenomenal. I can't wait to message him about it once I'm done, but I've been reading a little bit of this every single morning. I am also putting on pause but not DNFing Your Love Is Not Good by Joanna Hedva. I have never been in the middle of so many books at a time, but I actually was really enjoying the writing in this. It just got a little too dark and a little too intense for how I've been feeling. I've been going through like some ebbs and flows with my mood. Some days I'm really positive, other days I'm like verging on some just not so nice feelings, and I think I was having a day where I was already kind of feeling just like heavy, and then I was reading this and I was like, no, this is not contributing to a positive mood. So definitely want to finish this because I did really enjoy it while I was reading it up until it pushed me onto the verge of like a dark time. Okay, and then lastly, this is also a book that's on pause. Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. It's just a lot. It's just a lot. It's good. It's totally unhinged, like as unhinged as it gets, but again, being inside of the main character's head throughout all this crazy mental turmoil and inner dialogue was a little too heavy for me, but I will also finish that. That's like a goal of mine this year. I actually tucked my little Kobo in there as well. Okay, let's work through the rest of the books in here. So I have Kafka The Trial, which I do want to read this year, but I don't know if it's like a February-March read. I have Super Communicators, which I finished, but I keep on here because I haven't done my book notes on this yet. I have The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown, also a book that I want to read this year. Let go of who you think you're supposed to be, embrace who you are. Yeah, that's what I need. Cursed Bread has been on here for a while, and I just haven't reached for it, again, for the same reason that I know it has a dark theme to it, and I just don't think I can't do so many dark theme books again and again, like back to back, especially when my own mood is like being worked on. The Artist's Way, I just keep on here because I try to work on this whenever I can. E-Myth Revisited, I finished, so I can get rid of that. Perfect Fit by Claire Gilmore. This was actually one of my January aardvark picks, and I think it's just going to be a silly rom-com, so I'm going to keep that. Oh, I forgot about this. I started this on a day where I needed a little creative, I guess like creative inspiration, and this definitely gave it to me. I mean, I've only gotten about that far, but I think this is a really good book for anyone who is a creative by profession or just like wanting to be a creative. There was something in the very first letter from Rainer Maria Rilke to the young poet that he is like corresponding with that just resonated hard. It says, "Nothing is less relevant to a work of art than the judgment of other people. Whether positive or negative, they will always reflect some measure of misunderstanding." And then on the second and third page, it says, "You are looking outward, and now you must avoid that at all costs. No one can advise you and help you, no one. There's only one thing to do. Go into yourself. Ask yourself why you pursue this thing you call writing. Look and see if its roots draw from the deepest place in your heart. Protect yourself from stale motifs and turn to your own life. Portray your sorrows and daydreams, your passing thoughts and beliefs stirred by the glimpse of beauty. Describe it with a quiet, humble honesty, using the things themselves, the images of your dreams, and the objects of your memory. If your daily life seems too bleak, don't blame it. Blame yourself that you're not poet enough to call forth its wealth. Go into yourself and explore the depth from which your life flows." The way that those words just like pierced through the writer's block, the creator's block that I was feeling, crazy. Essentially, the premise of this is it's just a gathering of letters that were sent and written by Rainer Maria Rilke, who's a poet, to a young poet who started correspondence with Rilke, asking for help, like just asking for creative help, for writing help, for like poetry review help. I think being able to read the honest and genuine advice of another creative is such a blessing, and not something that I'm probably gonna sit through and just like crush in one day. It's something that I want to slowly enjoy and maybe reach for when I am going through a bit of a creator block myself. I have Mitch Albom's The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. The very first book that I read by him was Tuesdays with Maury, and I loved it. They always have a very wise and, I guess, positive note to it. Also, I got this book used, and somebody's plane ticket was in here. I won't show their name. Anyways, I thought that was kind of cool. I'm also going to reread Amy Tan's 100 Secret Senses. I actually have owned this book for forever. I want to say I read this in my teens, and even then I found 100 Secret Senses and Joy Luck Club to speak to me in different ways. And lately, for some reason, I have been craving stories about Chinese Canadians or Chinese Americans, but more like deeper stories about culture rather than just stories about immigrated lives. I don't know how to distinguish. I think it's more of a feeling, but when I was looking through my shelf, this like screamed at me, so I'm excited to reread that. This is also a pre-loved book that I purchased a while ago that I haven't gotten to yet, but this is Simone de Beauvoir's She Came to Stay. Apparently, she wrote this book as an act of revenge against the woman who almost disrupted her perfect relationship with Jean-Paul Sartre. I never know how to pronounce his last name, but I love a good, ironic, silly revenge story, and so I think that this will be a fun read. The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, another one that I've owned for a really long time, purchased used and never read. This is the second book from the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series, which I absolutely adored the first book. It was so wholesome and so easy to read, so I think that would be a good one. Yeah, I think that is the entirety of the list for now. I'm not gonna overdo it. I have all of these books also to place back on here. I think I'm honestly just gonna do a little bit of reading now because I am just feeling really done with my workday. I feel like if I continue to work, I'm just gonna be sort of like pushing myself outside of my like limits, my mental limits, and I'd rather not do that because that always leads to like me edging burnout, which is never ideal. So let's just spend some time reading. I think I'll continue Like Happiness or Slouching Towards Bethlehem. Decided to redo the little stand that I have next to my daybed. So now on the top layer, I just have the candle that I'm burning, my tarot cards because I use those for journaling sometimes, and then lip balm, lip color, etc. And then on the bottom shelf is where I keep all of my TBRs and stuff that I want to read. So I think this looks a little bit better. It just makes the space feel less crowded. It is a very gloomy Monday and I just wrapped up my workday, so I thought I would just do some reading while I wait for my bread to rest. I did bake another bread. It's my first loaf that is coming from Bertha. Yes, I named my sourdough starter Bertha. But I'm just waiting for her to rest so that I can cut into her and give her a try. I feel like it didn't rise as much as I had hoped it would, but fingers crossed it turns out well. I have been, why am I standing? Let's sit down. I have been working my way through Slouching Towards Bethlehem, which is a series of short stories from Joan Didion. I didn't love it when I first started it, but now that I've gotten into like the meat of the stories and I've kind of just like jumped around and picked stories that I am interested in, I'm really enjoying it. I have also been trying to get better at reading more critically. I feel like I consume a lot of books, but in the past, I never really tried to formulate my thoughts in a more like critical and analytical way. I would just be like, that's what the story is about. This is what I thought about it. But I'm trying to dive more into, okay, like, is there a deeper meaning here? What is the theme? You know, what is the character arc? What is the story structure? Why did the author write this piece? So having kind of short stories to practice that has been really nice. This book is split up into 3 separate parts. The first part is called Lifestyles in the Golden Land, and it's just little pieces that she wrote about her life in California or others' lives in California. The second portion is more of her personal essays and musings. They're called personals. So there's stuff like on keeping a notebook, I can't get that monster out of my head, on self-respect. And then the third section, I haven't gotten that far. The third section is called 7 Places of the Mind. I'm not really sure what that part is about yet, but I am looking forward to getting to that. Another reading update. I think I might DNF Your Love Is Not Good, which sounds absurd because I feel like the people who have read this book that I watch really liked it. Maybe I'm just not in the mood for it. The self-deprecating main character, along with all of the messy woman, messy thoughts, and self-sabotage is just not doing it for me right now. I love a messy woman book. I love some messy thoughts. I love a deep exploration into humanity, but I don't know. It's almost too much. It's a little too dark, sexual, like traumatic for me right now. I actually made it through a decent portion of the book, but I think she's gonna have to just at least sit on my shelf for a little while, and then maybe I will get back to her and see if I can wrap it up and finish it. But so far, it hasn't been something that I have enjoyed all that much, I'm not gonna lie. Roasted garlic olive oil. So let's try a piece dipped in olive oil. Mia zia vive in Inghilterra e suo marito è inglese. I got some new books in from Aardvark. This is my February box. It did come a little bit late, but I don't remember if I maybe just ordered it late, but I thought we would unbox some book mail together since this is a very bookish vlog. I did start reading Mitch Albom's The 5 People You Meet in Heaven yesterday, and I am really glad that I picked that book because it's giving ultra good vibes, as I kind of expected it to. I might finish it today. I'll give you my thoughts once I do. This is this month's Aardvark bookmark. I really do like that they give out bookmarks and that they're different every single month. So I have in here my 3 books from February. I picked out Good Girl by Aria Aber. This is actually her debut novel, I think. It says, this is an electric debut novel about the daughter of an Afghan refugee in her year of self-discovery. A stunning coming-of-age story. The main reason that I picked out this book is because it is based in Berlin. And this book is based in Berlin's artistic underground, where techno and drugs fill warehouses still pockmarked from the wars of the 20th century. So Nyla, born in Germany to Afghan parents, meets Marlo, an American writer whose fading literary celebrity opens her eyes to a life of personal and artistic freedom. The big question asked in this book is, who does she want to be? I feel like there is a little bit of a similar theme going on with this and maybe like happiness. Their description of Nyla and Marlo says she keeps finding herself pulled further into Marlo's controlling orbit. So I feel like there must be a bit of a power dynamic here that plays in. The next one I have is The Stardust Grail by Yume Kitase. It is a sci-fi novel, but that's all I know. It says, save one world, doom her own. Maya Hoshimoto was once the best thief in the galaxy. For 10 years, she returned stolen artifacts to alien civilizations until a disastrous job forced her into hiding. Now she just wants to enjoy quiet life as a graduate student of xenoanthropology, but she's haunted by the persistent and disturbing visions of the future. I actually haven't read a sci-fi novel in quite some time, so I am kind of excited to dive back into the world of sci-fi. I did pick out, I think, a few more sci-fi books, I want to say back in December, and I haven't gotten to them yet, but maybe we'll add a sci-fi novel to my March TBR. Okay, quickly, last one is Alter Ego by Alex Segura. I have been hearing about this book, and it's another story about a creative. Maybe I'm picking these subconsciously but on purpose, but Annie is an acclaimed filmmaker, an author, and a comic book artist known for one of the best all-time superhero comics in recent memory. But she's never been able to tackle her longtime favorite superhero, the legendary Lynx. So I think the ownership of the Lynx character goes for Bid, and she is trying to figure out whether she should tackle this in her art. I think that it's going to be an interesting look into the, I guess, like dramatics of any creative industry, but in this case specifically the comic creative industry. And then hopefully there is also kind of a peek into her creative mind and creative process as well. That's always what I seem to be looking for when I'm reading about writers, artists, filmmakers, just creatives in general. I'm getting really good feelings from this book, and I feel like I should add it to March as well, but I also don't want to overdo it with my March TBR. I might add one of, you know what, I will add Alter Ego as well as one sci-fi book. I don't think I'll add the Stardust Grail just because I have a bunch of other sci-fis I've been meaning to read. So maybe I'll add Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. This book talks about an abandoned planet, a hidden past, a deadly danger. Psychologist Dr. Ophelia Bray has dedicated her life to the study and prevention of Eckhart-Reiser's syndrome, the most famous case of which resulted in the brutal murders of 29 people. So they establish residency on an old abandoned planet, but she feels like the crew is hiding something. Their pilot is discovered gruesomely murdered, so Ophelia has to find out if this wave of violence and mental deterioration is from ERS or is it something even more sinister. Okay, I'm never going to get to these amazing books if we don't focus on reading, especially this week. So let's work through Mitch Albom's book first. Reading update. I finished Mitch Albom's The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. This was so good, kind of exactly what I expected it to be, because I feel like all of Mitch Albom's writing really explores life and death and purpose. This one specifically, it talks about a man named Eddie who gets into an accident at his workplace and ends up passing away. After that incident, he wakes up in heaven and he realizes that he's right back at his workplace. He's wondering what's going on, and then he meets the first person that you meet in heaven. So the structure of the book is essentially he goes through these 5 different stages in which he talks to 5 separate people, and each of them are there to help him learn a lesson about his life, but also give him detail about his life in a way that helps give him closure and understanding. They all were intrinsically linked to his life in some way, and each of them has just such a heartwarming memory to share or lesson to teach. And there were definitely a lot of moments when I was reading this book that I felt quite emotional and almost a little teary-eyed, not because it was necessarily, I mean, yes, there were moments that were quite sad, but really it was that feeling of like, just feeling really touched. It's so good. It is so good. Tuesdays with Maury by him also shares a very similar structure. Talks about a man who reconnects with one of his favorite professors, I believe, and he realizes that this professor is like about to pass, and he has this memory of like going to the professor's office hours and having this extracurricular time in which his professor would teach him things. And so he ends up visiting Maury every Tuesday, just like their old standing appointments, and the professor starts to like imbue serious life wisdom and teachings to him. And yeah, it's so good. Like, even just recapping this book in my head, I feel all sorts of emotional, almost like a visceral reaction for how touching it was. If you need a book that will make you feel, oh man, a little nostalgic, a little like edging on sad, but in a very fulfilling and almost energizing way, this book was that. It was both touching and like, it was both pulling on my heartstrings while also just making me rethink certain things in life. 5 stars, loved it. Makes me want to read more Mitch Albom. I do think I have one more Mitch Albom book that I haven't read yet that I own. So yeah, this is actually going to be a keep forever kind of book. I have started to purge my books, especially as I'm reading them. I will kind of make a decision in my head whether this is a book that I want to keep forever, move to Europe with me when I do at some point, and just like have live on my bookshelf forever. This is one of them. For sure. I did start a new book as well. I went to a cafe yesterday to get some work done, to have a creative day, meet up with my friend Bernice, and yeah, I brought a book with me to start. So I decided that the next book that I'm going to read is Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. I've only read about 27 pages, but I can already tell that I'm going to really enjoy this. This is a sci-fi horror book, which I was kind of flip-flopping about whether it was really time for me to read a horror book, but so far it's exciting. I think it's going to dive into humanity in a way that's going to be really interesting. And yeah, I'm excited to read more of this today, as well as throughout like the weekend. Most of my vlogs are going to be just like my day-to-day, going through my life, the moments that feel really like cozy and beautiful to share. But for this one specifically, because I kind of started this as like me talking about books, this channel, I wanted to have something that was really focused towards just like a cozy reading moment. So let me know what you prefer. Do you want to just see the reading sort of like sprinkled into my daily life, or do we want more reading and book focused vlogs like this one? I'm actually working through my work day right now, but I will be getting back to this in probably, you know what, probably at lunchtime, because then I can kind of read as I eat.